KMC,
HD3 Detroit,
KJAQ,
HD3 Seattle,
WBMX,
HD3 Boston, and on AOL Radio and Yahoo Launchcast.
Welcome to Interviews. I am Kimmy Rosapp, and you are listening to CBS Sky Radio. We are right now talking to Mark Griffin. And I'll tell you, last Saturday I went and saw this movie. It was a wonderful movie, Eat, Pray, Love. It's a movie with Julia Roberts, and I connected with it. I said, whoa, this is something that I just went through. And I'll say, like, probably 3 weeks ago, a major thing happened in my life, and it touched my heart. And we are so blessed tonight to have Mark Griffin. He's the author of Sri Guru Gita, and he is one of the contributors to Eat, Pray, and Love. And he is, and we're going to talk about the Sanskrit, and we're going to talk about mantras. And if you want to change your life, you want to find more peace in your life, he's the one that really made it available, how to actually translate the sacred book that Julia Roberts and the part that she that she brought into her life to make the spiritual transformation. And I want to welcome Mark to the show. Hi, Mark.
Hello, Kimmy.
How are you?
I'm very well. It's wonderful to hear you.
It is wonderful to have you on the show, Mark. And I have to tell you, I was looking, when I was looking at your picture, you just get this big smile on your face, and and I see you're standing still, but you're moving, and I think that's so. I want to start out with that. I'd love if you could share with listeners a little bit about your journey, and I want to talk about the movie, but I'll tell you, when I look at what you've done, the movie is a wonderful movie, but what you've done is so powerful, and that is the space that I think so many people are looking to come to. So tell us all about yourself and how you got to making that contribution to the movie.
Well, I would say that I have been a spiritual traveler my entire life, and I got involved in studies of the spirit through yoga and meditation very early in life, and went through a lot of training in terms of all of the standard forms of spiritual training, of meditation and concentration, yoga, and found some very powerful truths inside myself. In that way, it's the old way, it's the ancient way of sitting down and looking deeply within yourself. And in this way, you find that God is within you. God is within you as you. This was a part of the process of waking up, of awakening. I came through much of this training by studying with a spiritual teacher, an Indian man, who was an extraordinary guru. He was a master of the knowledge that comes from that ancient way. And he taught me. He showed me. The text, the Sri Guru Gita, translates as the Song of the Guru. Well, in India, the word guru is very common. In the West, it's a little uncommon, but it essentially means a teacher. The idea of that one who brings darkness to light and illuminates the truth.
I love that. When you talk about illuminate, okay, and this is so important, you talk about illumination and the truth. Tell me what the truth is to you. What is your definition of the truth?
That we are all one, that we are all the self, that we are all God?
Yes. Amen. Because I agree. That's the message. I had a message after a near-death experience, and it was, teach people we are one. And I think that that's just what we're all doing. You know, that's so important. So important.
It's very important. And most important is to know that God dwells within you as you. God is not something outside of you or separate from you, but arises within you.
You know, Mark, when you're talking about God, you know, and dwelling within, is there a way, because and I know that when I really decided just to meet my suffering, you know, just meet it and just come into the center and realize that really there is no suffering, there really is only that stillness, I found almost like I was being, I can't explain if it was haunted or like challenged in so many ways with all this energy that was just slamming me and pulling me. Can you tell me if, like, did you have that experience when you first started on your journey?
Oh, yes, very much. I would say very directly that the process of awakening is very challenging at every step, because you start with one point of view of the world and an understanding of the world that is an expression of understanding of the senses and personal experiences. But when you start to go behind the surface appearance of things and you go into the underlying invisible world of the spirit, where there are oceans of energy and oceans of light, oceans of consciousness, it is very, very challenging. You are deeply confronted by this profound experience. It's not so much like a philosophy that, you know, it's one set of beliefs that are switched out for another set of beliefs. You experience something very directly and very personally that changes your nature. There's a kind of process where the individual identity of the egocentric I consciousness, when it's confronted with the universal consciousness, it's one of those kind of situations where something got to give. It's like two polarized objects can't occupy the same space. And so there is a kind of dissolution of the egocentric I consciousness that is replaced by a universal identity.
You know, that's what I love is you're talking about it's replaced with there's that universal identity. What is universal? Meaning oneness. That we are all one and we are connected. When you get like, and this is the big thing, a lot of people are going through a lot of challenges, and in the movie that I really love that movie, Eat, Pray, Love. One of the things that she did was she felt like she had to get away and go within herself. Now, obviously, I have 5 children. A lot of people have kids. It's hard just to go to India and, just leave and separate. But, I would love to find some, and so would our listeners, get some answers on how we can do that. This is what you specialize in, is really, and you had to do it yourself, to really guide people. And you have a book, Sri Guru Gita, and that helps people with that. I was wondering, Mark, if you could tell us a little bit some of the things that we can do to incorporate into our life, like meditation. I have a question about meditation and Shakti. If there's I've been getting this message through meditation, if there's a meaning or something that connects with that.
Oh, yes. Very simply put, the idea of spirituality and spiritual life. So we're surrounded by the visual world, and there's an incredible glory in terms of the manifestation of creation. But in spiritual thought, that is just a fraction of the true creation and the true reality. That underlying the physical world, there are more and more subtle spiritual worlds of pure energy and pure awareness and pure consciousness. As the creation goes in the macrocosm, it is the very same with the individual, the microcosm. We have our identity, we have our physical body, but in spiritual life or in spiritual thought, a human being is not just his physical body, but there is an underlying series of layers of consciousness that make up a human being and make up the architecture of the human form. The idea of the physical body being the apparent physical envelope of mass and matter, but underlying the physical body is a subtle physical body that is made of pure energy and subtle fibers of light. Most people have heard of the chakras, the wheels of consciousness that flow up and down the spinal cord in the subtle body. And then there even more subtle body is the causal body, the body of mental formation or pure mind. Beneath even the causal body of mental formation, there is a supracausal body of pure consciousness. The word causal means consciousness, and supra means before. And so there is a body of consciousness before consciousness. It's supracausal. This is the dynamic of the spiritual world. The human being is actually here in the physical world of visual appearances of the creation, but there are also layers and layers of reality, of energy and awareness and consciousness that are behind the appearances of the world. This is what I mean when I talk about the entry into the spiritual world. You know, a person's life is made spiritual to the extent that they bring spirit into their life. It doesn't happen by accident. It is something that happens with great deliberation and with great attention and focus of will and heart and love. Simply put, the first idea of spiritual training is to begin to learn how to take your attention off the surface of the apparent world. The apparent world is wonderful and a glory, but it's only one part of the creation. And so in spiritual training, we learn to go into these more subtle worlds. But it's not like we go into a world outside of ourselves. We go within ourselves and find these layers of consciousness within ourselves.
I love that. And so it's about going within and the meditation. When you talk about meditation and, you know, the methodology, how to really do that. So many people, their monkey minds go, you know, and our minds go in 20 directions. How do you quiet the mind?
The mind is really an instrument of attention. It's the tool, the instrument that we use to pay attention to one thing or another. And there are fundamental skills that everybody has to gain access to. Being able to concentrate, the ability to think of one thing to the exclusion of other things, the ability to contemplate, to be able to roll a subject around in your mind and examine it like you're turning a stone in your hand and looking at it from all sides. Being able to do that in thought, being able to do that with your mind and understand a concept that's very subtle and examining it from different directions. There's discrimination. You'll be able to discern very subtly subtle phenomena and subtle perception. These are all skills that we learn. And, of course, last but not least is meditation, the ability to think of all things at once. When you ask how to still the mind, it's just like everyone else. It's you walk into a meditation hall and there's a teacher there, and they say, I'd like to learn how to stop my mind. I would like to be able to gain some peace, experience some stillness. And the teacher will almost invariably say, well, what you should do is just sit down right here, make yourself comfortable, and start watching your breath. Watch the in-breath as it goes into your body. Watch the out-breath as it rises and goes out of your body. And watch the spaces between your breaths. There's a space as you breathe in, and there's a point where you're no longer breathing in, but you're not yet breathing out. There's a space of just complete stillness. Then you're breathing out, you're breathing out, you're breathing out. There's a space when you're no longer breathing out, but you're not yet breathing in. Before you walk in and sit down to meditate, you're thinking about 10,000 things. You're thinking about something that happened at work and something that happened today with your companion or your children or your best friend or something that happened at the store. And everything's rolling around in your mind. But when you sit down, the first thing you do is you trade all of that to just thinking about the breath. So it's like you go from thinking about 10,000 things to thinking about one thing, watching the breath. And not only that, but you watch the breath go in, watch the breath go out, and you watch the space between the breaths where you're neither breathing in or breathing out. What you'll find is that your mind, just in that one simple leap, that one paring down of attention, because you're now paying attention to your breath, your mind will become much more still. At first, it starts out as a kind of training. You have to kind of teach yourself to still your mind.
And I'm doing it as you're saying it. I'm feeling that energy.
That's what happens. As soon as you begin to slow your mind down and still your mind, you'll automatically start going into your own deeper, subtler inner nature. That's one of the first things that you begin to experience is powerful energy, a powerful presence lies within you. And by going deeper and deeper, you become closer and closer to that.
It's amazing when you say that. When you become deeper, you go deeper and deeper, and you come closer and closer to it. And when you get there, do you just stay there, or is there something more that you can do to make to really, really reach that state of illumination, or is that the state of illumination?
No, I would say that in this case, what I'm describing is like using the breath as a doorway to get deeper within yourself. Because there is a presence, there is a divine presence within you. And as you get close to it, it's like approaching the sun. You start to feel the heat of it. You start to feel its presence. And as you get closer to it, it starts to interact with you, and your attention, your consciousness changes. And as it changes, it begins to sweep through your entire being. Great power, great drama, great bliss. As it does so, it produces a kind of clarity of heart, a clarity of mind. And at that moment, you can let go of the technique of the following of the breath, because that's what it took that was the vehicle to get you there. Once you get to that inner place, you just let go into it. You just release into it. And this will be an experience of very powerful and deep meditation.
Can you talk a little bit about like what happens when we do get to that place? Can you talk about the Kundalini a little? Because I know a lot of people think about the Kundalini and they think, ooh, that's kind of like, what is that? And I think sometimes people can misconstrue its meaning.
Yes, there's a lot that goes on with the Kundalini, and there's many ideas. The Kundalini is a primordial energy. It is the primordial energy of creation, and it lies within you. As we were talking about earlier, we were talking about the various elements of the structure of the human form, the human body. There's the physical body, but underneath the physical body is a subtle physical body. When I say subtle physical, it's a body of pure light. And it is the underlying support of the physical body, and it interfaces with the universal energy and the universal creative force. The word Kundalini means coiled serpent. And it is the energy of the Kundalini is spread throughout the human form, but it lies in great concentration in two places. The spinal cord that goes from the base of the spine up to the skull, and you can draw a line straight through the center of the skull to the soft spot on the crown of the head. When you're born, that there's a space that is a soft spot. In the spiritual terms, we call it the Brahmarandra. And you drop straight down through the subtle body relative to the spinal cord, to the base of the spine. And there is a seat at the base of the spine that is connected by these 2 points at the crown of the head and at the base of the spine. And there's a subtle fiber of light called Sushumna that goes through the entire body. It's not physical, like if you could cut the body open, you wouldn't find it physical, but it's subtle physical. It's pure light. The Sushumna goes from the base of the spine to the crown of the head, and at the base of the spine, the Kundalini takes the form of a coiled serpent. It coils around the space where the sacrum in the physical body exists. And it looks just like a coiled serpent, which is why it's called Kundalini. But also at the crown of the head, there is a kind of orb of light that looks like a lake, and we oftentimes in yoga call that the deep lake. And so the Kundalini dwells at the crown of the head in the form of the deep lake, and at the base of the spine in the form of the Kundalini. And this fiber of light between those two places, called Sushumna, connects the two. One of the dynamics of spiritual awakening is the kindling, the awakening of this profound spiritual force, awakening the Kundalini, because it is said to lie dormant in a human being until it is awakened. And when it is awakened, the Kundalini at the base of the spine uncoils and begins to shoot up the spinal cord with great force and an enormous amount of energy. And the Kundalini at the crown of the head, it's like a lake begins to pour into the crown of the head and descend through the Sushumna. This is the awakening. This is what causes a person to go from a condition of potential awakening to a condition of dynamic awakening. The potential becomes dynamic. And the moment that occurs, that event is called Shaktipat. It's called Shaktipat. It's called the descent of the Shakti, the descent of grace. It is the movement of the Shakti, it is the movement of the Kundalini that really sets the individual person, the individual being, onto the path of awakening. Their foot touches the path, and at that moment, they begin the undergoing the process of the stage by stage and step by step process of illumination and awakening. The use of the word illumination is very direct in that as the Kundalini begins to move inside this central nerve, this central thread, it begins to light it up with a light internal. Before Shaktipat, before the awakening of the Kundalini, the Sushumna is dormant. It conducts light, but at a much lower grade. But when the Kundalini is kindled, and the Kundalini Shakti begins to move and rise in the central nerve, from the base of the spine to the crown of the head, it begins to, quite literally, illuminate it. It starts to glow. It starts to get brighter and brighter, step by step and inch by inch. It'll also descend from the crown, or the space above the head, and very much from the space at the base of the spine, up through the torso, up through the throat, through the brain, and it reaches the crown of the head. And as it does so, it begins to illuminate, and that Sushumna thread becomes brighter and brighter and brighter. And as this is the awakening process, it begins to kindle all of the unseen spiritual components of the human form, of the subtle body and the mental body. And as these subtle aspects of being become empowered, the various components of the brain begin to switch on, and the heretofore invisible spiritual world begins to become visible. It's not that it was never there, because it was always there. And it's not like it's something that you don't have and it's given to you. just that you haven't switched that part of your attention on. You haven't switched that part of your consciousness on. The meaning of the Kundalini is that process of waking up and becoming illuminated. That's what's interesting about the word illumination.
Hey, Mark, if people want to get a hold of you, or, they want to pick up your books, because I know you have several different books, if they would like to get a hold of you, how would they do that?
Yes, Kimmy, I have a website. I have a Center for Spiritual Studies that's based here in Los Angeles, where training and meditation and all forms of spiritual training are given, and that center is called Hard Light Center of Awakening. My website is hardlight, HARDLIGHT, hardlight.org. My entire schedule is there for traveling and teaching. I give retreats around the world, 3, 4, and 7, and 10-day meditation retreats. I give day-long, 1-day and 2-day meditation intensives. I also have a group of people that study with me on a long-term basis, and we meet once a week on Thursday nights in Los Angeles.
Wow. So, this is, and I'm just going to say that anybody, if you're just tuning in, you've got to go. If you're in that area, like Mark, you're just such a wonderful guide and really helping me to understand the process. And I think a lot of people are going through this process right now. And you're talking about once you connect with that, and it is, and you said it's something that is within each and every one of us. I'll tell you, my personal experiences is once I connected with it, I found myself with these challenges, and I also felt myself like it was like a test. It was like I was like in that enlightened place, in that illumination, but there were a lot of things in my life started to change. And can you talk about how people, when they start to come into that space, how they can stay grounded and not get pulled away? Or is it possible that you just can't get pulled away?
Yes, that is a very important subject, and it's something that I deal with people in the center and some of my students. It is something that everybody has to come to understand. Because it's very true. The Spirit, what we call God, lies within you, and it is present within you. And there are degrees of experience of this where you understand it philosophically and you understand it as a belief system. But as you undergo this awakening process and all of these underlying spiritual systems of consciousness that are within you start to switch on, it starts to move with great intensity and great force. And it's sometimes like a tidal wave that comes out of the deep ocean of consciousness, and it's a wave that crashes into your daily life. Our daily lives, we have a lot of arrangements. We have arrangements for this, and we have arrangements for that. And we go along, and we do the best we can. And all of a sudden, if it becomes our fate, our destiny to begin this journey of spiritual awakening, this force of spirit comes into our life with such intensity. And sometimes it's just like when you go to the ocean and you watch the waves on a storm day crash against the rocks. It's like you'll feel these waves of energy coming into your life and crashing into your arrangements and crashing into all the elements of your life and changing them, moving them around and shifting them. And some are getting broken up, some are getting swept out to sea, new things are coming in. That's actually one of the dynamics of spiritual life, is that you have to learn to think on your feet and deal and start to live in a world of dramatic change. Oftentimes when things start to change and we don't quite understand what's going on, we become fearful, we start to contract. But if we understand that, we are on this spiritual journey, and one of the things that's going to happen as a result of this spiritual journey is this spiritual energy of Kundalini, and consciousness is going to sweep into our life with such force and then things start to change. Well, we know to expect it. We say, okay, I was told this is what's going to happen, and so I'm prepared for it. So you don't become frightened and you don't withdraw, but you do have to stay grounded. That's one of the things where you start to get a rhythm of a daily practice where you sit and meditate every day for 30 minutes to an hour and just sit quietly with yourself and go inside and really see what's there. And, sometimes you'll see beautiful things about yourself, and sometimes you'll see difficult things about yourself, things that need improving. Different qualities of your life will come under stress and start changing. And so you have to become good at thinking on your feet and seeing what the changes want to be and see how they are unfolding. So when you start a spiritual life and all of this dynamic of change starts to happen, I always tell everybody it's really good to have a strong exercise regimen where you exercise an hour and you exercise your body and keep your body in good health and keep your mind fresh. And last but not least, a kind of mindfulness of the breath. When we're talking about this way of starting to meditate where we're watching the breath, it's very useful as a kind of pole star, as a kind of guiding line to just stay mindful of the breath, because it'll help you stay centered and help you stay grounded as you go through changes of psychological content, as you go through changes of emotional content. And sometimes it'll be psychological and emotional all at once. And you still have to deal with all of your responsibilities of life, but you also have to deal with the evolution of your own spirit, the evolution of your own soul. And so you take this attitude of you are on a journey, and anything can happen. And so you are very alert and awake and bright and open to what is going on. At the same time, you're staying very centered and alert because you are in a universal of constant changes, and God has given you excellent senses and an excellent mind to be able to perceive and understand these changes. And you raise the courage of your heart and you meet them.
I love that when you're talking about that. It's about meeting them and meeting yourself, and it's not such a scary thing because it's really a wonderful thing. And I can't believe it's our night. It's time to sign off. And Mark, I want to thank you, Mark Griffin, the author of Sri Guru Gita. Just a wonderful teacher, guide. I'd love to have you back on the show, because you've helped me so much, and I know so many of the listeners out there are thanking you for joining us. And also, if you get a chance, and everybody out there, go see Eat, Pray, Love. It's a wonderful movie. Mark, thank you, and bless you.
Thank you very much, Kimmy.
Thank you. Have a good evening.